Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video with me. For those of you who don't know me, I'm FinnaGuide, and today I'm going to be talking about violent video games. Are they bad? I'm sure everyone watching this has at least heard of violent video games, if not played one yourself. But in case you haven't, here are some examples. Call of Duty, Apex Legends, and of course the ever-popular Fortnite. Now these are all shooter games, but violent video games are not confined to the shooter game genre. For instance, some other examples would be The Walking Dead and Borderlands. Now, not everyone likes violent video games. Of course, no genre is going to have only fans, but some people take it one step farther than simply not liking them. They want them banned. Why? Why do people want violent video games banned? Well, there's numerous reasons. For example, some people say they're too violent. Some people say they're teaching children that violence is good. But the biggest reason, and the reason I'll be talking about today, is that they say they're causing people to be more aggressive. Here's the question for you. Are they right? You must come to your own conclusion. All I can do is present to you my opinion based on the research I have found. I say no. No, they're not. Here's why. But before we start looking into experiments and studies, let's answer a question first. How do you test for aggression levels? Well, there's three ways people test for aggression levels in experiments: the hot sauce paradigm, the competitive reaction time test, and the word or story completion task. Let's talk about the hot sauce paradigm. In the hot sauce paradigm, participants are told to pour a cup of hot sauce for a taste tester. They're given hot sauce, varying in degrees of spiciness, and a cup. They're told that the taste tester has to drink all of it, but that the taste tester hates spicy food. Aggression levels are determined by how much hot sauce and how spicy it is they put in the cup. In the competitive reaction time test, participants are told they're competing with a person in the next room over. That they press a button when prompted, typically with a flashing light, as fast as they can. When they win, they're allowed to blast white noise, typically, into the next room over for as loud and as long as they want. Don't worry though, there's not actually a person in the next room over. They are competing against a robot, programmed to let them win exactly half the games. Aggression levels are determined by how loud and how long they blast the white noise. Before we continue, I want to stop and have you answer a question. What's the first word you thought of when you saw this picture? If you thought of something like foot or feet, you'll be considered not aggressive. If you thought of something like fight or fist, then you would be considered aggressive. Here's why. This is the word or story completion task in action. In the word or story completion task, participants are given a word with missing letters, like I just gave you, or an unfinished story. Participants are asked to complete the story or guess the word. The more violent the answer, the more aggressive the person. Now let's look at some studies. On December 10th, 2018, on his late night show, Jimmy Kimmel Live, Jimmy Kimmel tasked parents to turn off the TV during the most dramatic moment while their children were playing Fortnite. Unsurprisingly, the children lashed out in a number of manners, ranging from cursing to some even hit their parents. What Jimmy Kimmel and other big people who participated in this experiment failed to realize that there's a much bigger factor than simply the violence in Fortnite: competition. But because Fortnite, and this study in general, was not isolated for the variables violence and competition, we cannot come to a conclusion. But I say competition caused it. To prove this, I'm going to show you another experiment that did isolate the variables. The researchers Paul J. Ciodacci and Tina Wilbury conducted the first set of experiments to successfully isolate the variables of violence and competitiveness. Experiment 1 was conducted with 2 equally competitive and difficult games that differed only in levels of violence. Experiment 2 was conducted with a violent set and a non-violent set, the only difference inside the sets being competition. Let's look at Experiment 1. Experiment 1 was conducted using the violent action game Conan and the non-violent racing game Fuel. In Experiment 1, they decided to use the hot sauce paradigm to test aggression levels. They told participants they were participating in 2 separate non-related experiments to get the best results. After eliminating participants who suspected suspicion or knew of the goal of the experiment beforehand, they concluded that there was no difference between the aggression levels of these two games. This concludes that violence is not the cause of the increased aggression levels. So what is? Well, this is shown by Experiment 2. Let's first look at the violence set. In the violence set of Experiment 2, they used the highly competitive Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe and the less competitive Left 4 Dead 2. This Experiment 2 was conducted using the same procedures as Experiment 1. When the results were calculated, they showed a greater aggressive behavior score for Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe than for Left 4 Dead 2. This is further backed up by the non-violent set of Experiment 2. In the non-violent set of Experiment 2, they used the highly competitive racing game, Fuel, once again, and the non-competitive Marble Blast Ultra. This set was also conducted using the same procedures as Experiment 1. When the results were calculated, they almost exactly mirrored the violent set of Experiment 2, with Fuel, who had been isolated for competition, showed greater aggressive behavior scores than Marble Blast Ultra. This bar graph shows the results of Experiment 2. Look, going from left to right, the bar graph reads Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe, Fuel, Left 4 Dead 2, Marble Blast Ultra. As you can see, there's a great difference between the competitive games and the non-competitive games, but there's little difference based on violence. What does this mean? It means that the violence in violent video games do not cause the increased aggression. It is in fact the competition in video games that cause it. This can also explain the reaction we saw in Jimmy Kimmel's study, considering Fortnite is a very competitive game. I'm not worried about people attempting to ban competitive games, because that would be much harder to do than banning violent video games, considering they also have to ban games such as Mario Kart and Super Smash Bros. Now, before I end this presentation, I would like to present to you one more question. Should children play violent video games? I say children should only be allowed to play violent video games with adult supervision until they reach the age intended for the violent video games, which would be the age for the game, which would be the age recommended on the box. This is because children looking at violence, watching violence, without someone to explain it to them and calm them down, become greatly confused and scared. I would not recommend children play violent video games without an adult. For the same reason, I wouldn't suggest they go off and watch things like Tokyo Ghoul or Saving Private Ryan by themselves. But that concludes my discussion for today. Thank you for watching this video. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe to see more content on my channel. Hope you have a great day. Bye!